my name is Lizelle from Lizelle Loves Books, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. Today's video is I'm gonna share with you all the books that caused me to get teary-eyed or caused me to have emotional damage. I got this idea from watching Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl, Sam from Sam Reads a Little, and Stormy from Novel Life. I'll link their channels down below. And I think I saw this video last year too on Jen from the Book Refuge. So I'll link all their channels down below. The first book I want to mention, actually the first couple books I want to mention, is by Sarah J. Maas. But because if you guys don't know me or don't know my channel, I first got into romance with reading fantasy romance. So I have to mention Sarah J. Maas. She is in my opinion, the queen of fantasy romance. And the first book I'm going to mention to you is A Kingdom of Ash. It is the last book in her Thorn of Glass series. I bawled when particular side characters passed away. If you have read the book, you would know which characters I'm talking about. And I also bawled because it was the first time Rowan said to it was the first time Rowan accepted Aelin as his mate face to face. So I cried when I read Kingdom of Ash, and probably because it was the last book in the Thorn of Glass series. The next book I want to mention is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. And Sam mentioned this on her video, but chapter 57 is the chapter that got me because it involved one of my favorite characters in the SJM universe. And if you have read A Court of Wings and Ruin, you would know which character I'm talking about, because that chapter had me bawling. Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Chapter 57. If you haven't read the book yet, I suggest you do, but chapter 57 will get you. The third book I want to mention by Sarah J. Maas that got me emotional is The Court of Silver Flames. It's Nesta's story, and I cried with this one sentence at the end when she says, "I give it all back." Now, for those of you who haven't read Sarah J. Maas, and you get to that scene where she said, "I give it all back," I started bawling. And if you haven't read Agatar yet, what are you doing? I suggest you read Agatar. And the fourth book that made me cry from this SJM is House of Earth and Blood. And I cried at the particular scene where Bryce gets reunited with a very special person in her heart, and she gets to say goodbye. I cried like a baby in that part where she gets to say goodbye to a certain character. I'm not gonna name names because I do not want to spoil any of those for those who haven't read Sarah J. Maas's books. I don't want to spoil it, but yes, I cried when Bryce got to say goodbye to a certain character. The next book, 2 books I'm gonna mention, is by Emma Scott. It is The Full Tilt Duet by Emma Scott. It follows Casey, who is a guitarist for a famous rock band. She gets drunk one night, and her driver, Jordan, has to take her home. But her driver doesn't know where Casey lives. So he takes Casey to his house instead. And it is the romance between Casey and Jordan. And it is beautiful. I haven't read the books since it was published. I think it came out in 2016, and that's when I read it, but their story stayed with me. If you haven't read The Full Tilt Duet by Emma Scott, please read it. Another book by Emma Scott on this list is Between Hello and Goodbye. It is about Faith and Asher. Faith is a party girl who always comes late to her job, and her boss calls her into his office and tell her that she has to get her act together. She has to take a sabbatical because she can't keep coming to work late every day. So she takes this trip to Hawaii. And something happens where the firefighters were called in, and that firefighter happens to be Asher, our male hero. And Faith and Asher have this connection right off the bat, but they try to keep it strictly friendship. But that doesn't work because they are attracted to each other, but it's more than just the physical with them, so they do enter a relationship. It's more than because they see each other for who they are. So Asher sees himself in Faith, and Faith sees that Asher is a really good guys that she is not used to. So they do have a long distance relationship even after she moved back to where she was, but something tragic happens to Asher's family, and that's the part I bawled. Please read Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. It is one of my favorite books of the year. Please read this book. I also read this book because of Sam and Cheyenne. Another book that had me reaching for my tissue box is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. Still Beating is about Cora and Dean. Cora and Dean don't like each other. Dean is Cora's brother-in-law to be because Dean is engaged to Cora's sister. They go to a party. Dean and Cora's sister leave early, but Cora wants to stay at this bar, and her friends keep drinking, but Cora wants to go home. She can't contact anybody except Dean. So Dean goes to pick Cora up at this bar, but then something happens, and then Dean and Cora get kidnapped. And they're trapped in this house with this serial murderer. And the story is half of them being captured and the other half being free from their captor. And the things that they go through are so horrible. But Dean and Cora form a connection after they went through what they went through. They realize they have feelings for each other. And Dean breaks it off with his sister, but breaks it off with Cora's sister because he realizes he can't relate to anyone besides Cora. Cora is the only person who understands him, and Cora realizes the same thing. The only person that understands what she went through is Dean. I love this book, Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. It is one of my favorites. I read this book because of Jess from Pizza Books, but I was a little mad at Cora when they got out of captivity. I was a little mad about how she treated Dean when they got out. Like he was her emotional punching bag, and she didn't think, and it wasn't fair to Dean because he went through the exact same things she went through, but all she could think about was her pain. But regardless of that, I still loved it. I still needed a tissue box after I read it. So please read Still Beating. Another book that I read and that made me cry was, it is called Stormy by J.L. Seegars, and it is about Sloan. Sloan's husband.
I read this book because of Crystal from Crystal's Bookish
Life. In a car accident. She thinks it's her fault. It's 4 years later, and she gets involved in a romance between her and her husband's best friend, Dominic. What Sloane doesn't know is she actually met Dominic first in college, but she didn't remember because she was drunk. And Dominic has been pining for Sloane for 12 years, but he decided to bow out because she was in love with his best friend. And he would never do anything to make Eric sad because he was always there for him. Please, please, please read Stormy by J.L. Seegars. It is very emotional. One of my favorite reads of the year. Also, another book I want to mention that gutted me. One of my favorites, and the only other YouTuber that I heard talking about it, was just from Peace Love Books, but it is Making Faces by Amy Harmon, and it is about Fern, and she has always
I forgot to mention Making Faces has some dark elements and has little to no spice, but I promise you don't miss it. Please read Making Faces.
Ambrose goes to the military instead because this is the time where 9/11 happened. So he convinces the rest of his friends to sign up to the military with him. But a few years later, Ambrose is the only one that returns home from the army. All of his other friends have died, and Ambrose carries a tremendous guilt because of that, because they would have never signed up for the army if he had asked them, and he comes back scarred with a lot of scars, both physically and mentally. And Fern has a cousin named Bailey who's in a wheelchair who has muscular dystrophy, and it is about Fern and Ambrose's romance and their friendship with Bailey. Now, the part that made me cry is something happens to Bailey. I'm not gonna say, but please, if you read anything from this list, please read Making Faces. Oh, another book I want to mention is The Silent Waters by Brittany Cherry. The Silent Waters is about Maggie and Brooks. It is a brother's best friend romance. Maggie has been in love with Brooks since she was little. In fact, when she was little, she said, "Let's have a wedding," and the wedding was supposed to be in the woods in the forest. So she goes to the forest to wait for Brooks, but she sees something horrific, and because of that, she doesn't talk anymore. But she still is so in love with Brooks, and Brooks carries guilt about what happened to Maggie because he was like, if he was there, maybe she wouldn't have seen what she saw. So they do form a relationship that, well, they started a friendship, but as they get older, they do form a friendship. But you see, Brooke is a part of this band with her brother, and Brooke said, if you want me to stay, I'll stay. I will not go with the band, but Maggie doesn't want to hinder Brooke, so she doesn't say anything. Another time jump passes, and they're 25. Brooks breaks up with his celebrity girlfriend because he realizes he's still in love with Maggie. Something happens, an accident that causes Brooks to have injuries, and then it's Maggie's turn to take care of Brooks like Brooks took care of her. This was so emotional. Silent Waters by Brittany Cherry. Please read this book. And the last book I want to mention to you is Before I Let Go by Kenny Ryan. I read an arc of this. It comes out next month. It is about Yasmin and Josiah. And they were married before, but their family goes through 2 consecutive tragedies. So, and they realize they cannot take it, so Yasmin asks Isaiah for a divorce. 2 years later, they're still in each other's orbit because they have a restaurant together. And one day, Josiah and Yasmin have to go on a work trip together. There's only one bed trip. There's only one bed trip because there's only one hotel room available with one bed, and they realize they still have this connection with each other, but they have a lot of stuff from the past weighing them down, so they have to decide, is it worth it to give their relationship a second chance? Those are the books that caused me emotional damage. Please comment down below if you have read any of these books. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and let me know down in the comments below what are some of your books that cause you emotional damage. I'm always looking for new recommendations.